How did I end up here? Lying in your arms, watching city lights burn the stars.
When I say I think the DS era of the mainline Pokemon games was the best, I mean that. These days, I'm aware that isn't an exclusive sentiment, with an increasing number of people ragging on the recent games for their, let's be honest here, degrading quality, likely brought about by extremely rough development cycles that typically see a new game every year, or at the most every 2 years for the expansions for the previous games in between. I haven't played Scarlet or Violet yet at the time of this video, so I can't speak for their actual quality. In fact, the most recently released mainline game I played was Brilliant Diamond back in 2021, and I will honestly defend BDSP and Swish as good games in their own right, but to say they're on par with past eras, namely the DS era, would be a complete lie on my behalf. In 2019, I reviewed Pokemon Platinum. I wouldn't go back to it TBH, as it's admittedly a hard watch in some areas, and I titled that video The Beginning of the Peak, which obviously refers to how I feel Generation 4, or the second half of it anyway, was where the series, well, began to peak in quality. As of now, I have no opinions on the original Diamond Pill, but going off what I said in the BDSP review, you could probably put 2 and 2 together for how I would feel about them. Platinum was followed by Heart Gold and Soul Silver, games that are genuine heartfelt recreations of Pokemon Gold and Silver, which are just the epitome of pure nostalgic bliss, not just for the people who played the originals, but the first timers who are experiencing that same feeling now, and they were followed by the first games of the 5th generation, Pokemon Black and White. Black and White are truly the point nowadays where people are like, yeah, the DS era was goated, including myself, as they're my absolute favourite Pokemon games to this day, a point I hope I got across in my 2022 review. But, there exists a question when it comes to just about anything. How do you top peak? This is a question that actually haunts me because I'm pretty sure I peaked in 2021. But here's the thing, it's possible. Just look at Jujutsu Kaisen's Shibuya instant arc, for example. That's like if something peaked and then somehow just kept getting better. Also, give those animators a break and more time, like damn. What did I do to deserve this? Just over a year later from the release of Pokemon Black and White, at least in Europe, Pokemon Black and White 2 hit the shelves. These weren't just sister games like Emerald was to Ruby and Sapphire or Platinum was to Diamond and Pearl. These were proper canon sequels to the originals, set 2 years after the events of Black and White. The series has never done numbered sequels before and hasn't since, so here's the all-important question. Does Pokemon Black and White 2 live up as sequels to the original Black and White? Short answer, yes and no. By the way, for some transparency, because I couldn't be bothered buying a capture card for my 3DS in order to get Verge, I went the emulation route. I know there are definitely opinions surrounding emulation, but I can assure you there's no difference to my knowledge, other than just being that little bit more convenient, honestly. And also, yeah, the whole review will look like this, but I might have found a way around it. Either way, put up with it. And please ignore the mouse. Sorry, I didn't mean to break your immersion once more, but, let's just get on with it. And to note, I will be narrating this as if you already know what happens in the original, so keep that in mind. My focus here will be on Black 2 because, well, that's the one I got close to 40 hours worth of footage for. But also because it's the direct sequel to Pokemon Black, duh, and that's the one I focused on for the last review. Make sense? Great. Black and White 2 has us start off in a brand new location not seen before in Univers, Aspertia City. Right off the bat, this is awesome because we can already see the differences between the originals and these sequels with the addition of new locations. This is also the first time in the series that we start off in a city location and not a small town that's probably closer to a village. Granted, I love the likes of Nemea Town in Black and White and Twin Leaf Town in the Gen 4 games with their secluded, homely feel, but Aspertia still has that positive early game vibe to it, so it's all good with me. Alright, calm down me, we aren't talking about something like Final Fantasy where your spirit gets crushed the further you go on. It's here we're introduced to not only our mum, we really gotta start asking questions about Dad's whereabouts, and our rival for this game, officially known as Hugh. Hugh is an interesting one. Jumping the gun a little here, he's not on par with the previous game's rivals, especially not N, but he does have something to him that I will go over as we do go on. Oh look, we're going on! So with that said, Hugh's motivation for going on a journey isn't to become the strongest trainer, as is the typical milquetoast motivation for our rivals, but it's to rescue his little sister Purloin, which has been stolen by Team Plasma a whole 5 years prior. First off, yes, Team Plasma's back. Second, this is a great initial way to somewhat tie in the events of the first game with this one by putting an emphasis on the actual reach Plasma had, even before they came to prominence, doing stuff in a part of the region we didn't even know about prior to these games. And third, it's actually a pretty heartfelt reason. Being real though, the plot device would have worked exponentially better if it were Hugh's Pokemon that was stolen, and not his little sister's, who is very much a side character and has never been officially named, literally just known as Hugh's little sister, so yeah, rather unfortunate, but it is a good motive nonetheless. Just before meeting Hugh though, we got word from our mother who told us that Professor Juniper's assistant is in town to give us a start Pokemon. And a fun little thing here, not only does our mum have a connection with Professor Juniper, but she's also worked in Pokemon Centers as the one who restores your Pokemon before she had us. So that's a cool little bit of world building there. So anyway, we head to the northern part of the special city to go and meet Juniper's assistant, who is actually Bianca, the same one who was one of the childhood friends and rivals from the original games, clearly now having followed her through on becoming an assistant to Juniper. Other than her design, which is really cute by the by, nothing else has changed about her. She's still the same clumsy, partial airhead we all know and love from the originals. This is really nice to see because meeting Bianca here, it's kind of our first taste of how things have changed in those 2 years from the events in the originals. Even just down to character redesigns, I'm always a sucker for them. So upon meeting Bianca in front of this frankly stunning view, she presents us with 3 starter Pokemon to choose from: Snivy, Oshawott and Tepig. I admit, I would have liked it if it weren't just the same 3 starters from the originals, but every sister game and or mainline sequel does this, so at least the consistency is good. I ended up choosing Oshawott because it's goated, but spoilers right now, I didn't end up keeping it on the team. Yes, I am one of those players, but I rarely actually abandoned the starter. I just had a team I wanted to use and it just wasn't part of it, so I'm really sorry. Though, being honest, the team plan got switched around a bit because of certain circumstances, but I will get to those, I guess. Afterwards, we battle our rival, Hugh, who has the type effective starter to ours, Snivy in this case, which he just so happened to have because he raised it from an egg. Sure. I'd press X to doubt on that one too. No, I guess it's fair. It's not like he chose it after us. Quite a coincidence though. Side note about the music, I feel like there's going to be a lot of these, but Hugh's theme is an underrated banger honestly. I've always liked it in the past, but as of maybe the past year, I've really come to love it. Went off to Route 19 for the standard how to catch a Pokemon tutorial that I really wish you could skip, but at least it's not Sun and Moon's tutorial gauntlet. For the record, I like Sun and Moon, it's just the very beginning I had problems with. Future aside, we continue through this mini route before we're stopped by a former league champion, Alder, who jumps off a cliff and shatters his knees. Jeez man, you alright? You really didn't need to do that, you know? Super necessary. He comments how we're not an experienced trainer yet, which is like, yeah, thanks for stating the obvious, and he offers to train us at his little house just outside of Flokesi town. Don't panic, you aren't about to face off against possibly one of the strongest trainers in the region just yet. Instead, you'll be fighting his other students. But not before he's weirded out by the fact you have 2 town maps, one of them being given to you by Hugh's little sister for Hugh, who hurried off after battling you in Dispersia. Shades of barrier there. But yeah, Alder shoos us away to go deliver the town map to Hugh, which should honestly be called a region map, but hey, and we chase him up to Flokesi Ranch, where we battle Hugh again. But things go awry when we learn that Team Plasma's back on the scene after they stole one of the ranch's herdiers. Goes without saying, but Hugh takes this incredibly seriously, now having a lot more fire behind him, and we both go and hunt down Team Plasma. In Flokesi Ranch, I caught my second team member, well, first, I guess, but either way, I caught Riolu, which I named Alpha. So generally, I have this thing where I prefer using Pokemon I haven't used before, but Lucario obviously doesn't fit that rule, and spoiler alert, another 2 Pokemon on my team don't either, so half my team weren't new, but the other half were, if you care. And on the topic of Riolu, we have an expanded roster of Pokemon to choose from, now including Pokemon from previous gens, unlike in the originals where we're limited to the new Pokemon Generation 5. And for as much as I generally admired Black and White for going that route, there's just something about being able to mix and match Pokemon from the current and past generations that make team building all the more fun. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. So, as I was saying 2 paragraphs ago, we have to hunt down the Team Plasma member who stole the ranch's herdier, and when we do find them, they're not only decked out in new gear, but they're also full of masks off this time around, not even pretending to be good guys. To be fair though, that whole facade wasn't kept up for long in the originals anyway, so them just getting straight to the point here is appreciated. Even though we don't get to battle them, this little escapade is enough to plant the seeds for them being a friend again, even if kidnapping Pokemon is so passé nowadays. We saved the day! So now it's back to Alder, who uses this battle against his other students as a way to teach us about type matchups by subjecting us to the Generation 5 type monkeys. In our case, because we chose Oshawott, Pansy and Pansage for our type strength and type weakness. A neat little way to teach us about this, though I do prefer the original's way of handling it with the type trio gym leaders. Speaking of them, they're not here. No, they've been replaced as the first gym leader, who is now Charon, the other childhood friend and rival from the originals. Fancy that, huh? Get to see what 2 of the major characters from the first games are up to now in a super short time frame. A nice thing for returning players. Briefly before that though, we're introduced to this game's achievement system per se, in the form of medals, with this character called Mr. Medal giving us a medal box so we can collect them. When I said this is kind of like an achievement system, I meant that. By doing stuff like walking a certain number of steps, reading signboards, or even catching every certain type of Pokemon, so jeez, you'll be given a new medal to commemorate that. No game has done this type of thing before, I don't think since, so it's a really neat thing to have here, as something extra to work towards. Those some medals are essentially defunct now thanks to the closure of Pokemon Global Link and Wi-Fi support for DS games, but there are workarounds for the latter, namely the WinFi project that I suggest you look into if you're interested. Oh, and on our way back to Aspersia to take on the gym, Alder does the thing again. Like, man, come on. Your knees are gonna hate you in later life. Back to Cheren, he also happens to be a normal type gym leader, which makes him the first to be the first by this point in the series. You get what I'm saying. This battle with us is also his first gym defense, so sorry bud, I guess you're learning the hard way. Following the battle, Bianca meets us outside the gym, and after a brief but cute interaction between her and Cheren, seemingly the first they've had in like 2 years apparently, they teach us about the X Transceiver, which is kind of like a guide where you can call up a certain characters to ask them about various topics. I would have mentioned this in my black and white review, but I honestly didn't consider it important there, and TBH, it kind of isn't here either, just being a way for characters to talk to you when they're not on location, usually during more dramatic moments. Bianca also gives us a Seagate, a nice little mantelpiece that I did not even turn on once this time around because of how I heard it can mess up the emulation files. So, man, it's even more useless than before. That's quite an achievement. I should get a medal for that. We are off to another new location now in Verbank City, which is also the location of our next gym battle, but before that, we run into a little dispute two characters are having with one another. On the left is Roxy, a brand new character and a new second gym leader, a poison type one. And on the right is her father, Pop Roxy, how creative, who makes mention of a location called Pokestar Studios just north of Verbank, and how he aspires to be a successful actor, while Roxy doesn't quite think he should do that. Damn, one supportive daughter. To be fair, she does say that him doubling as an actor and a ship captain could cause problems for people, so she's at least justified in her concern, I guess. But you know, family disputes aren't our problem. What do we look like, a therapist? Our goal is to become the champion of the region, I guess. So I take my time to train up my Riolu to level 26 where it finally evolved into Lucario. Through enough happiness, which only happens during the daytime, mind you, also can have immunity to the poison type gym I'm about to face. Call me petty, I call it being strategic. We wipe the floor with Roxy in the gym, which alone has more voice acting than the entirety of Pokemon Sun and Shield, and then we just get sent off to resolve the family dispute between Roxy and her dad anyway, so I guess we do look like a therapist. Pokestar Studios. Ah, what a location. This is an activity added here that has you follow scripts, or rather a step-by-step guide in order to make a movie, which you can then see after completing. Even though I didn't mess around with it this time through, this side mode is a lot of fun, being similar to a puzzle type of game where it's up to you to figure out what to do next, in the case of getting mystery endings to your film. There's also a number of unique creations here that you would never otherwise see, and the devs really didn't have to go out their way for it, but hey, more content is much appreciated. This is also where we can find Bryson, the former 7th gym leader in the originals, who was only there because he was recovering from an injury he suffered while filming for a movie, but because he's recovered now, he can get back to acting, so therefore he had to give up his gym. This place is rather significant in terms of content, like damn, so I'd recommend you go check out Joe Cohen's very own movie length guide on it. It's truly a work of art. Well anyway, after Roxy's dad makes his debut on the silver screen, he realises it's not exactly for him and goes back to being the ship captain, which is awfully convenient because we'd have no other way to leave this part of the region otherwise, and our journey would just be over essentially. Sure, there's flying Pokemon, but that HM is a few cities away at this point. However, the stink of plasma's in the air and they're blocking our path and just being a general nuisance, so along with Roxy and Hugh we clear them off as we get to listen to a new theme. I love the original Team Plasma Battle theme and I like this one a lot too, but I think it's only on par with the previous one. Still great, just not superior if you get what I'm saying. We don't have to go chasing after them back onto Route 20 just before Verbank, but you know, we're that guy, so we quickly resolve the matter and we can now board the boat to the peakest of cities in the entirety of Pokemon, Castelia City. That's right, our first time getting back onto the mainland, and what a way to get back into the groove of things with easily the densest area of the region that also includes our next gym location because, you know, that's what's most important to us here. As soon as we leave the pier that we left the ship onto, we're met by a clown who just gives us a bicycle. But I don't know man, I wouldn't trust a clown giving me something for free, let alone anyone I just met in a brand new city, but hey, some people are actually good and getting a bike for free is not exactly something I'd refuse, so who am I to complain, especially when it goes this fast. This sprawling metropolis that is actually based on the island of Manhattan in our world is once again home to the Bug-type gym led by Burr, who has wandered off again due to art block or something. Jeez, if your art block is this consistent between games, maybe consider relocating, could do wonders honestly. As soon as we learn Burr's gone somewhere, surprise surprise, another familiar face from the original game shows up, Iris. She didn't have much involvement in the originals, really only showing up in Castelia and being the 8th gym leader, but only if you were playing Pokemon White. Here however, she has a little more presence, and she's even matured a bit during games, now also sporting a new appearance. I wonder why the increased involvement here though. But oh yeah, we are in the middle of Team Plasma still, I kind of forgot about that, I was too busy perusing. So that said, we make our way to the fun pier where Iris tipped us off at their potential whereabouts, and it seems she was right. The stink of plasma is real once again. Actually, that's probably just a sewers, never mind. A new location in a previously existing one. Castilia's sewers is dark and dank and one of the few locations in Universe that can change depending on the season. Because yes, dynamic seasons are still a thing. There was a whole meme to be had about how there was only 2 seasons in the originals, winter and not winter. And that's arguably still the case here, but as you saw back in Route 20, that place differs depending on if it's autumn or not, so there's something, I guess. But the sewers only change in winter, so there's nothing we can do. Luckily, we can still traverse enough of it to find the plasma grunt, so I guess there's no problem really. Upon defeating them alongside Hugh, we find Burr, who was actually doing the same and trying to hunt down plasma in his own unique way, but all of a sudden we're confronted by a new face, a man who calls himself Colress. He's interested in bringing out the full potential in Pokemon, a motive that's, but for Calter, who becomes a kind of rival to us, similar to N, he's nothing like N in that regard. There's another location you can find here by going upstairs called Castilla Park, though it's just labelled as Castilla City, and this is apparently where everything began for the place, so kind of cool to see. And this is where I caught the 3rd official member of my team, yep, the 3rd, we'll get to her in a moment. So, instead of heading straight to the gym now that I had found Burr, I went up into Route 4 where the glorious Welcome to the World of Pokemon track plays. And the first version difference here, the first section of Route 4 is a developed residential area in Black 2, and a ruin-like area in White 2. A pretty neat version difference if you ask me, with each respective version maintaining the prior game's motif, the former having a more modern take on the region and the latter having a more old-timey feel, I suppose, like with its version of Open Lucid City. On this route, I caught the World Destroyer herself, Darumaka. She's not quite a Diamante yet, I named her Omega because I thought it was cool. The second Pokemon I have used before, haven't told about the origin story of how it became one of my favourite Pokemon in my Black and White review. So there's the second official member of my team. Where's the third? Well, I made my way back to Castilla Garden in order to catch a Baneri, so the third and final Pokemon I've used in prior playthroughs. I am of course talking about the unkillable legend that was the Lopunny I used in Ultra Moon and showcased way back in the Ultra Showdown series with the GOAT himself and VC. Who knows, maybe this one can achieve the same feat. In fact, I should have just caught a Lopunny through rustling grass encounters, a mechanic where you can find rare Pokemon and the EXP Overlord itself, or dunno, or because it was just easier than going through the happiness grind again, like I did with Riolu and Lucario. This time would have been way worse too, seeing as Baneri starts with a solid 0 in its hidden friendship stat, and not the typical 70, so yeah, dodged the bullet with that decision. Anyway, I named her Yor after the character Yor from Spy X Family because, well, Yor's just a perfect wife. Like, she's the wife. The one that every other wife talks about being pure perfection. That sounds like I'm saying Lopunny's wife material too. I also want to see you in a boat suit. Anyway, so with my 2 new party members in hand, and Oshawott, I let Omega have her way in the gym, though Alpha provided some assistance. Truly, the dynamic duo. I should have mentioned this earlier, but I just couldn't find a place for it. I decided to play on set battles this time around, meaning I wasn't given the option to switch up between opponents' Pokemon, making the adventure a little more difficult, but there's nothing wrong with a bit of challenge here and there. It was all the more appreciated actually, because Black White 2 can get kind of difficult in places, so not having that freedom to just counter switch was certainly something. But considering I was running on Diamante, I think I was playing on easy mode. Back on our way again to Route 4, in our case, we were stopped by Colress again, who was fascinated by how our Lucario is more self-confident than ones in the world. How he can tell this is beyond me unless he's already been to Pony Island and Alola prior to also appearing in those games, then actually no, go off I guess. He also says he disagrees with Team Plasma's goals of liberating Pokemon from trainers, and that's definitely a cold take if you ask me. He tells us to meet him on Route 4 and moves a bunch of Crustle out of the way using some strange advice, and he battles us because he's just that interested in bringing out Pokemon's full potential. Continuing through Route 4 now that we can actually go through the rest of it, instead of going right through, I did a little training in the desert resort off to the northwest of the route. This area has changed a little between games too, namely the Relic Castle now being beneath the sand. Well damn, there goes the Gen 5 fossil Pokemon I guess, so yeah, now there's just nothing of interest here anymore. Heading up to the Nimbasa City now, we go through yet another brand new location here, the Joint Avenue. This place is essentially defunct with Sea-Gear communication not exactly being a thing now that Generation 9 exists, but this place was a tycoon minigame sort of thing where you could develop the place through local communication with other players, similar to the whole Street Pass? What the hell? Similar to the whole Street Pass thing on the 3DS, rest in peace Street Pass. Granted, you can still develop it through NPCs that may stroll through every now and again, but I wouldn't personally say it's worth it in this climate. Hey, who knows, maybe you could organise a meetup with a bunch of people to kick this thing into gear. Not me though, I'm emulating. So after passing through the admittedly nice looking forever underdeveloped tourist attraction, we arrive in Nimbasa City, the city of tourist attractions. I jest, but there's a lot of fun things to do in Nimbasa, like visiting the sports stadiums for some extra training, absolutely not even bothering with the Pokemon musicals, running the festival with a different person every day, the gear station, aka the Battle Subway, Gen 5 version of the Battle Frontier that's actually pretty good, and the Battle Institute. The meta sure is the place of stuff to do, and speaking of stuff to do, in regards to the Battle Subway, we get to fight the Subway leaders Inga and Emmett, who are standing outside the gear station, and someone rather interesting, the other player character. They offer to battle the two of us, and it's sort of a mini introduction to how the Subway will work, if you're battling alongside the other player character instead of just by yourself. It's a fun release egg, honestly. Our next gym battle is also located here against the returning electric type leader Elisa, but before that I ventured out east to Route 16 and into Lost Lawn Forest to catch a new team member, the first actual new Pokemon for me to use, Vespiquen. Or Combi, I guess. Well, that was the case until I realised how long it'd actually take to find a female Combi, because yeah, only female Combis can evolve, and somebody thought it'd be funny to make female Combis much harder to find, and with that encounter rate, yeah, it wasn't happening. So I gave up and went looking for Leavanny through rustling grass encounters instead, until I found a Vespiquen through one anyway. What can I say, my luck works in mysterious ways. I named her Vanessa because haha, funny B-movie reference. I think it's kind of funny that half my team would have been friendship-based evolutions if I went with Leavanny, even though that's my least favourite evolution method. Granted, Lopunny was caught already evolved and Leavanny would have been too, doing away with the process, but you get the idea. With 4 official team members and Oshawott, I headed to the western part of Nebraska to challenge Elisa, and surprise, she's not in her gym anymore, but a new one besides it instead. They could have just redesigned the already existing one, or just removed it entirely, but it's fun they left it here as a little side attraction. And what would a theme park kind of place be without some kind of roller coaster attraction, am I right? After a fun little walk through memory lane, we get to challenging Elisa's gym, which is now a catwalk, because she's a model in downtime after all, and what an icon she is. You go girl, slay! This gym has more voice acting than the entirety of Scarlet Violet, by the way. Upon defeating Elisa, which was rather annoying for me because her Pokemon kept Volt switching out and poor Omega was paralysed, meaning was slowed and had a chance of not moving at all. I know, I could have cured the paralysis, but I was running Facade, which doubles in power if a Pokemon is burnt, paralysed or poisoned, which happened early on in gym, but it was just that call an ambulance, but not for me meme for Omega. So yeah, Omega was kind of girl bossing, but with a handicap because, you know, gotta allow the opponent some chance of winning. I'm not that cold-hearted. Oh, and this also happened when I was off training on Route 5 before taking on the gym. Oh. Oh. I thought it was pretty funny. Before heading back out onto Route 5, however, we have another run-in with Team Plasma, and he was here to assist us in taking them down. Afterwards, he shows a more emotional side, saying how he felt so hopeless in those 5 years between when his sister's Purloin got stolen and now, and that's why he wants to get stronger. All the while this is going on, the beautiful track Emotion is playing in the background. I gave this track its time in my review of the first games, but even so, it's just such a beautiful piece that hits you in the feels whenever it plays. Made all the better by the fact it's not used often, so it really means something whenever it appears. It's on Route 5 that you get taught about these things called Hidden Grottos by Bianca. These are little hidden, well, grottos that can have either items or Pokemon in them, and what makes them worth checking out is the fact that Pokemon within them can have their hidden abilities. Hidden abilities are the type of ability that Pokemon don't normally have access to and are extremely hard to obtain in the majority of cases, but if you can find a Pokemon with their hidden ability, they're usually damn good, like Speed Boost on the Yamba line or Drought on the Vulpix line. My luck works in mysterious ways though, so besides the scripted encounter with a skill link Minchino, I never found any Pokemon in these places and just gave up checking them after a while. Moving on, we soon encounter a man that ladies all swoon over, Heartbreaker Charles, and he introduces us to rotation battles, a battle format that has 6 Pokemon on the field at a time, 3 either side, and whichever one's up front can be rotated out left or right into different Pokemon. It's similar to triple battles in a sense, just with a little more strategy involved, but I don't like either of those formats. Double battles are enough for me, thanks. So with that, we're now on our way to Driftveil City, the city with music that was memed on maybe a year back for it being so damn good. Driftveil has also had a little facelift, now being a lot more developed, probably down to the oil bound that is clay. But yeah, we're here for our next gym badge, as you can probably guess. But we have yet another running with Team Plasma before then, who are actually being confronted by a former Team Plasma member, sporting the old gear from the last games too. It's mostly an argument about different ideals and such, and how Plasma split into 2 different groups, one that follows Zen and the other that follows Ghetsis. Oh yeah, Ghetsis is back by the way, though much less present this time around, you'll see later. The former Plasma member asked us to meet him in a building next to the gym, where we're also met by one of the 7 stages from the last game, Rude. Besides Rude here, and another one we'll get into in a moment, the 7 stages are not a thing here. In fact, only 3 of them are in the game, and one of them is very brief interaction in the post-game, so there's that. To be honest, I never thought much of the whole 7 stages thing, other than them just existing to give Team Plasma a sense of structure, so them being done away with basically entirely here is not a problem with me. Anyway, Rue talks more to us about how the ones who chose to follow N have changed their ways, but is admonished by Hugh for the acts they committed as recent as 2 years ago. Mention of stealing his sister's Purloin again. Of course, Rue's apology isn't enough, understandably so, and Hugh goes off to the gym to get stronger. And then, kind of out of nowhere, Rue gives us a Zora, and not just any Zora, but N Zora. This brings up an interesting oddity: obtaining N's Pokemon. Pokemon Black and White 2 has this thing called Memory Link, where you can link up to the previous games and, assuming you've at least completed the story of those, either of them, you can experience these flashback scenes in certain locations that go over certain events that happened in the 2 years between the original games and these sequels. This also includes being able to catch several events Pokemon once he's used in battles against the player in the originals. These are very cool extra things for returning players, but, you know, I'm emulating, so I can't exactly do that. But hey, a free Zora! A Pokemon that you couldn't get prior without some events, so that's pretty cool. Though I didn't make it part of the team because I had used it before, and you already know what I said by this point, but it's still cool nonetheless. Well, we're out of here now, so it's right to the gym, which remains a ground type one, led by Doug Dimmadome, owner of Dimsdale Dimmadome. I messed that up for sure, I guarantee you. I had some trouble here with this gym because I had nothing to hard counter the ground types, but I think Alpha did a good enough job holding his own, even despite the weakness to the ground. Vanessa contributed as well, which was good because she started to fall off a little after this point, sadly, so it's great she got some time here. So with our newly acquired Quake badge that we got from these emerald mines, at least I think they're emeralds, could be Jade, but I'm not getting into that argument again, Clay wants us to show something at the Southwood Driftvale. Previously the Southwood Driftvale was the cold storage, a not exactly noteworthy location that I'm glad it's gone because I don't want to be reminded of the event or the mistake I made in my black and white review. That being said, the cold storage is now gone and has now been replaced by the Pokémon World Tournament, or the PWT for short. This place is awesome! Think of it like this game's version of prior gen's Battle Frontier, but with a little more pomp and circumstance. I didn't mess around with the PWT this time, and I barely have in the past because it requires a bit more of a competitive mindset, which I severely lack as evidenced by certain Pokemon shown on videos. Nevertheless, it can be a fun sync for more competitive enabled players, but even I can get some enjoyment out of it from the fact you can battle gym leaders, even champions from other regions, so, you know, it's cool. We're just starting out, however, so we can only take on the Driftvale tournament, which also has Hugh, Sharon, and even Collis take part in it as well. Unlike how it works normally in the PWT, where levels will be restricted to level 50, we can just battle with our Pokemon as is. So, suffice to say, it's a pretty easy sweep for us. First go through Hugh, then Sharon, and finally Colress. Alpha sweep, baby, let's go! Colress is only here to see the true power of Pokemon brought out, by the way, if that was important at all. With a definitive victory under our belts and the title of Driftvale champion now to our name, that's not actually a thing, I just want to feel good about myself. We head outside to catch up a bit with Sharon, who says he didn't even recognise us from how much we've grown as trainers. But, wait a minute, the Stinker Plasma is once again in the air as a grunt comes running past us down the deck below the PWT. Pursued alongside Hugh and Sharon, we bought a pretty impressive ship, one that Hugh observes as being weird back when we first docked in Castelia. Turns out this is Plasma's Frigate. A frigate is a type of warship, by the way. I didn't actually know what that word meant until I looked it up just now, actually. And you know, trespass your enemy turf if we get ambushed, but any number of grunts is no match for us because we're that guy, remember? I guess Sharon and Hugh also helped clear them out too, but then suddenly the second 7 Sage out of the 3 in this game, Zinzlin, makes his appearance. And yes, this is the same one that was complaining about not liking the cold yet choosing to hide in cold storage back in Black and White. Funny how often irony is caused by idiocy. That whole thing is still play for laughs here, but now he's a central antagonist. Yeah, who'd have thought a passenger at Odyssey would have been a major bad guy in the sequels. Something village origin story, who cares, whatever. He waffles on about how Team Plasma plans to use the legendary dragon Pokemon of Unova to overtake the region. And before we can do anything else, we're forcibly removed from the premises by the mysterious Shadow Triad and are left to ponder what Zinzlin could mean because, well, the player character from the last game has one of the legendary dragons, Reshiram in this case, and N has the other, Zekrom. Or rather, just aren't in Unova anymore, as Chen puts it. But you know, we have more trifling matters to deal with, like getting more gym badges. So we make our way northeast through Route 6 in order to go through Chargestone Cave and then get to Mistral City, but oh, a Cambalion! How neat! Reading this old guy gives some context that says that maybe Cambalions patrolling the region to protect Pokemon following the events that unfolded in the region 2 years prior. Another great way of tying in the events of the previous with this one, even if I feel like the Swords of Justice, because we do run into the other 2 later on, should have had a little more involvement. We make our way through the really cool Chargestone Cave and into Mistral, where I immediately fly back to Driftvale with a Tranquil I caught on Route 6 to do an extra bit of spelunking in Relic Passage located off to the right of the PWT. The reason I went through here was to go and catch a Volcarona. Yeah, a Volcarona. The Pokemon is a beast and you can catch it early on at an infinitely more manageable level 35, half of what it was in Black and White. Volcarona is super interesting because before Gen 5, field encounters like these, Pokemon you can just encounter in the overworld, were limited to the legendary Pokemon as a way to make them feel more special. But Volcarona isn't a legendary Pokemon, it's even a pseudo-legendary, a Pokemon with a base set total of 600 that isn't a legendary Pokemon, so it was always a genuinely interesting case. In these games though, other Pokemon can be found in the overworld like Bravio and Mandibuzz in Route 4 in White 2 and Black 2 respectively, and the Grotto encounters I mentioned earlier just as a couple of examples, so the whole thing about field encounters kinda lost its luster stone in these games. Also, Volcarona wasn't added to the team because of my fear against type overlap, already having a fire type in Darmanitan and a bug type in Vespiquen. It also kinda sucks for a while. See, it doesn't quite have access to the kit that makes it a complete beast of a Pokemon yet, and it doesn't have a great deal to work with until then unless you already have decent TMs, so yeah. Oh yeah, also I was asked to maybe shiny hunt this by Atom. Yeah, that wasn't gonna happen, I'll tell you that much. Back on track now on Miss Stroughton, we get to meet Professor Juniper for the first time in this game, where she just gives us Master Ball. Sweet, thanks Queen. But yeah, other than the very start where she welcomes us to the world of Pokemon, and over the X-Transceiver I guess, we haven't actually had a chance to see her yet, so it's nice to see her in person. Slay Queen! She introduces us to Scarlet, the flying type gym leader Miss Stroughton, and if I say anything about Scarlet, I'll be suspended. So I'll just leave it at she's a really fun character who somehow hasn't landed herself a lawsuit for constant trainer engagement in her gym between both games, but go off girl I guess. However, before we do that, we make a trip to Celestial Tower, the required by law unsettling location that every Pokemon game seems to have until they screwed it up in Pokemon X and Y, but that's a topic for never. Here, Professor Juniper gives us a Lucky Egg, a held item that boosts the XP gain by 50%. Having the Lucky Egg this accessible is so damn appreciated because otherwise I'd be hunting Happies or Chanseys for hours on end because they only hold it 5% of the time and are exceedingly rare themselves. More evidence as to why Juniper's a queen. I headed up to the top of the tower to ring the bell, something I think everyone should do every time they're here. Just the right thing to do, you know. And then I flew back to Miss Stroughton to go and challenge Scarlet for a badge in her pending lawsuit building. Like, for real, how does she keep getting away with endangering people? I thought pilots were all about safety. Wasn't too much trouble, Omega just kind of girl bossed her way through the whole thing with Alpha coming right at the end to finish the job. The dynamic duo prevails once more. As soon as we're done, Scarlet escorts us, Professor Juniper and Bianca, all the way to a new location called Lentimus Town. All because we can't get through Twist Mountain, which, you know, fair enough, I don't exactly want to try and get past Marshall of the Elite Four either. So, Lentimus Town. This sure is a place. To this day, it hasn't officially appeared anywhere else in the series, well, other than the Pokemon Adventures manga. Even then, that was only in passing. But what I'm trying to get at here is, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, how do you know? There's no official pronunciation, get off my case. Lentimus Town is just pit stop for us, as we gotta make our way through a place called Reversal Mountain to reach Undella Town of all places, a location that was previously a post-game one. The way they switched it up on us for the sequels where things are incredibly less linear, and isn't just a straight line around the region is much appreciated. Plus, getting to explore locations that were previously post-game inclusive early on is always cool, I love that type of thing. Just before heading into Reversal Mountain, I had a small matter to deal with, catching a new team member. In Drapion. Well, Scorpion, but you get the idea. Drapion's been a long time coming actually. I've always wanted to use it on my team, like in Platinum for example, but just was never able to, either because it didn't quite fit in, or because of my type overlap thing. So I'm so happy I finally got to use it here. I went with the name Akura after Akura Vashimu from the Monster Hunter series. I admittedly didn't have many ideas for a name here, so I went looking into Scorpion enemies in video games, and while the Scorpox enemies in Xenoblade were a decent shout, the name Scorpox sounds like some kind of disease, so I eventually just settled on Akura. That and Akura is a pretty cool name by itself. Catching Akura here was a rather unfortunate timing though, because Reversal Mountain, obviously being a cave system, had plenty of rock types and Pokemon it didn't work well into, including many of the trainers, but there was a little side distraction before that, the Strange House off to the east. The Strange House is, if I had to compare it to anything, this game's version of the old Chateau from the Gen 4 games, and every time I have to head into the old Chateau, I'm always genuinely uncomfortable, and here it's no exception. Just the general aura about it and the fact there's a wandering spirit guiding you around just makes it incredibly eerie. This wandering spirit, by the way, by filling in the blanks, they were put to sleep by the Pokemon Darkrai and is just now in eternal torment, presumably having DC'd from the server in their sleep, all the while hopefully wishing to come into contact with the elusive Lunar Wing. It's pretty messed up and really speaks to how much of a genuine nightmare, no pun intended, Darkrai is. It's a real shame Darkrai is seemingly stuck as an event Pokemon because I would love to see more of it in the games. Pokemon Legends Darkrai anyone? I guess the Rise of Darkrai will suffice for now. I also guess this makes 2 obligatory unsettling Pokemon locations in 1, so I suppose that's why X and Y had nothing. Nah, still no excuse. Anyway, making our way through Reversal Mountain, we're accompanied by Bianca, who wants us to do research into something within this place, but is too scared the Pokemon are too strong around these parts, so she needs the guy, us, to help her. Never change, Bianca, never change. This is another location that differs between versions as well, and not just aesthetically. The Black 2 version of this place is just so much better, I don't make rules, but also in terms of layout. Though only slight differences in the path you take, so minor inconvenience at worst if you're playing both versions one after the other. When we escort Bianca to where she wants to investigate, she notes it has an odd feeling, also saying how this is the lair of the Lava Dame Pokemon Heatran. Now, I thought Heatran's lair was in the back of Stark Mountain instead, but go off girl I guess. You probably do know more than me. Goddamn continuity. Well, either way, it's something for us to keep in mind for later, so with that, we go and exit into Untitled Town, which has seen a bit of a change since the last games, with a big ass mansion now being destroyed to make way for the tunnel into Undella. The maniac who buys your valuable stuff from the Abyssal Ruins is still here, so if you want to do some exploring again for a bit of treasure and maybe some lore, then go for it. Ah, Undella Town, what a beautiful beach resort. There's absolutely nothing that can possibly ruin our vacation here. Well, maybe this could. It's around this point where my plans for a team fall apart. Sure, I may have 5 out of 6 Pokemon that make a team, and do what, but I'm still missing that one. Originally, I had planned to use a Haxorus on my team as one of the 3 Pokemon I haven't used before, but I've used a Haxorus before, in the playthrough I did for my Black and White review actually. I honestly have no idea how I forgot about that, but then I went looking into other Pokemon I could use, and I went looking into Ice-type Pokemon to help me in the next gym battle because, spoilers, Drayden, the Dragon-type gym leader from the originals, has now been demoted to the 7th gym leader, and I was genuinely terrified, because I have nothing to work into the Dragon-type, and if Haxorus got going, it'd just be over for me. And seeing that I was in Undella, I thought I'd try and catch myself a Walrein, or at least a Celio, through Bubbling Spots, which is the waterless version of Rust and Grass. I thought it'd be fun to run a Walrein because it's actually quite decent in its stats with all around, but I was here for a while and I was wondering if my luck had taken a complete U-turn because of how a Celio or even a Spheal through normal surfing didn't have unreasonable encounter rates. And it hit me. That line of Pokemon can only be found in winter. I was playing in autumn and I wasn't about to wait like 3 weeks just to find one. I could have messed around with my PC clock, but I was worried about messing up other stuff on the PC, so I just didn't. And in fact, this is the case for every Ice-type Pokemon in this game. Like, sure, I get it, it makes sense and it makes the region of Unova feel realistic, but good lord, man. So, yeah, I was out of luck. But I think one of my team members took this to heart. Hugh battles us against and the poor dude gets done in by a Mega, with some late game assistance from Yor, who filled in for Akura after it got done in by a Simisear. Hey, no worries Akura, you'll get your time. And with that, we gotta start making our way up north from Undella Town to reach Lacanosa. Route 13 was pretty alright, probably one of the longest routes in Unova, but throughout, both Vanessa and Akura got their time to shine. They followed mostly for the sake of finally getting attack order, a signature move of Vespiquen that has a high crit ratio. Straight up, Vespiquen's moveset is kind of shallow, you will just be running the 3 order moves, attack, defend and heal order, along with maybe Power Gem, or in my case Destiny Beyond a little later on, but it does work so I can't fault it there. Venturing on upwards a little more, we run into Cobalion again, who gives us a chance to battle it. I said nah and just went right through to Lacanosa. Look, hot take, but the worst part about Pokemon is catching Pokemon, especially legendaries. It just feels like you're throwing Pokeballs for half an hour while waiting for the RNG to stop taunting you. Sure, I guess I can understand the feeling people would get from finally catching one, which, I'll be honest, was one of my favourite feelings when I was younger, but now, bruh, I just want to get a move on. I'm 22, not 35. I shouldn't be having this mindset. Oh, well, never mind, because we've just arrived in Lacanosa Town for some juicy lore. Professor Juniper and Bianca pull us aside before we can heal up in the Pokemon Center, rude, to take us to a house where an old woman resides where she tells us about a giant chasm, which is located out to the northeast of Lacanosa, and how it's actually a crater left behind from a meteor impact years ago, and how a Pokemon was hidden inside of it. Putting 2 and 2 together, using mostly hindsight, this Pokemon is Kyurem, which is interesting. Supposedly it eats both people and Pokemon, so the people of Lacanosa erected walls to keep it out. Getting real AOT vibes with that one. I am going to fucking cry! So yeah, like, that's a thing. It also hints at maybe Kyurem's active again, seeing as there have been readings of temperatures dropping as low as minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit, or in real numbers, minus 50 degrees Celsius. Safe to say that's pretty cold, and there isn't any other powerful Pokemon like Kyurem that can do that, so things are currently heating up in the story. Or cooling off. Never mind. Juniper talks to us again outside, theorizing about this said Pokemon, before telling us to go ask Drayden about it in Opelucid City, which is great because that's also where our next gen battle is. 2 birds with 1 stone, baby! Oh, a cold stench once more? That can only mean one thing. Here's Zinzlin again, who we actually get to battle this time. Hugh helps us out and, oh, come on dude, Ice-type Pokemon, you know you're your own problem, right? This isn't a catch-22 situation. If you hate the cold, it's very easy to solve, my guy. Poor Hugh, by the way, that Sapphire was always going to have a rough time in this story. Mr. Literally his own problem out of the way, we now have to make our way through Route 12, which is the shortest route in the region by far. A direct and immediate contrast to the prior Route 13, from one end to the extreme to the other. This leads us to Village Bridge, and I love this place. It's so quaint and just full of good vibes. It's hard not to feel at ease here, especially with its calming music, which you can add to by talking to certain people around the village. It's awesome that the complete version of this piece was the one they used on the OST. I love this place, I will never not. But, unfortunately, we can't stay here forever, for as much as I would love to. So we must continue to Route 11, another incredibly short route. I guess the lengths of Route 11 and 12 came as a result of the Village Bridge, but that's hell of a worthy sacrifice if you ask me. Compared to Route 12, there is something of interest in Route 11. Verizon? I'm not going through this again. But like Cabalion back on Route 13, I avoid it because I can't be bothered catching it, and I already have a fine type in Lucario, Alpha, anyway. So here we are, Opelucid City, the one with the superior music. I'm sorry White 2 and White, but even though I like how your version of Opelucid looks, the music just cannot compare. This track's absolutely rocking. Opelucid is where our gym battle with Drayden is awaiting, but because I'm a scared little bitch, I decided to go do some training off on Route 9 to the west first. To be fair, Route 9 does have the traditional shopping mall on it. I do find it odd it's not in a city location like Cassidia for example, but maybe they just couldn't find a fitting place for it, so this one had to do. Though, to be fair, there's enough to do in Cassidia anyway, but I meant in other locations too. Just like any other shopping mall, though a lot more convenient, greatly linear as a result, with the main interest of these, the stat boosting vitamins, being on the top floor. Some training later, I headed back to Opelucid to face my fears and take on the Drayden's gym. Now, if we're talking about amazing set pieces, this gym is one of them. It is phenomenally cool how you get to ride on top of a dragon statue up to Drayden, and how the dragons collide when you reach the top. It's awesome! The gym was a hill to overcome, I'll say that much. Mostly because I decided to leave no stone unturned and battle every trainer, which are unique in their approach, specialising in different things depending on what side you choose and what level you're at, like either specialising in defense or attack on the first level, or triple or rotation balance on the second level. It's a neat approach. I wish more gym challenges would have formats like this. So, there he is, the man who wrestles with his Pokemon to make them stronger, Drayden. To say I was worried going into this would be an understatement because, as I said some paragraphs ago, I don't know the exact number, I don't even know what counts as a paragraph anymore. If his Haxorus starts setting up with Dragon Dance, a move that boosts both the Pokemon's attack and speed stats by one stage, even one time, it could easily sweep my team. But do you also remember when I said a certain member of my team took that to heart? Yeah, unfortunately for Drayden, that was Omega. It was 3 turns. Unlucky for Drayden, but lucky for me, Omega proved once again that she's not only a destroyer of worlds, but an absolute girl boss too. You go, girl. I assume Drayden was feeling an immense amount of anger following this, but because he's a professional, he gives us the legend badge, and thankfully doesn't break our legs. I legitimately feel that, man. And then invites us to his house so he can tell us more about the legendary Pokemon of legend that's been mentioned a couple of times up to this point. But then, a bombardment from the sky! Damn, things are really heating up now. Or you could say that, nah, I'm not doing that again. This is all the work of Team Plasma, who have come to get their hands on these things called the DNA splicers. DNA splicers! Oh my god, the Australian accent's coming out there. I'm British. A device that is somehow linked to Cure and that Drayden was literally just telling us about in his house. How they overheard this conversation from the sky is beyond me, but who cares about answers? We gotta stop them from getting their hands on it because, well, what good's gonna come of it? So this is pretty cool, huh? Sure, ice-solving puzzles will forever be the bane of my existence, and it's the one thing I'm actually glad was phased out in the later gens, thanks to the advent of being able to move in more than 4 directions, but this one's not so bad. I can excuse it even more for being something new. New as in this landscape suddenly changing, if pretty minimal. That's not weather dependent, not the whole ice sliding thing. Just going to the right person isn't enough though, we gotta make our way around the whole of Opelucid and taunt every plasma grunt, before then making another loop back around to the gym where we battle Zinzlin again and obviously run through him. Alpha, you are goated. He runs off and then Drayden fetches us the DNA splicers that are suddenly taken from him by one of the Shadow Triad, so we then have to go and hunt them down and battle them for it. Alpha's goated again. But as it turns out, they're not the tribe member who stole them and they were just buying time. Damn, we were playing for fools. According to Sharon though, another vastly freezing temperature has been recorded near a new place called Human City. And well, lucky for us, that's where our final gym happens to be. Man, aren't we lucky? We are that guy though, so I don't know what I was expecting. But how do we get to Human? We haven't seen a way to get up there. Or have we? Back to Undella Town, baby! Because there's a little place called the Marine Tube, an undersea tunnel that connects Undella Town with Human City. I love love this place. It's so pretty. I love the idea of seeing the Pokemon swim around, even including a Wailord sometimes, and the music is just incredible. I'll let you listen to it. I just adore this place so much. Easily one of my favourite locations in the entirety of Pokemon. It's incredible. It's so good. What a glorious place. Just a shame it's over so soon. But you can have too much of a good thing sometimes, so it's for the best. But here we are in Humalao City, the site of our final gym battle. The gym that demoted Draydon, which is also a water-type gym. Huh. Yeah, a water-type gym as the final one. Let alone this late in the game is an odd decision. But I suppose it wouldn't be the first time, as Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald did the same thing, but you should totally have something to deal with the type at this point, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem for you. I, on the other hand, don't have something that can easily deal with the water type, so I had to roll in there, putting all my faith in Akura, but Akura is yet another girl boss, so there was no need to panic. However, like Burr way back in Castilia, we gotta go and actually find the gym leader first, who is off swimming in the ocean amongst the Pokemon. Gotta say, that sounds amazing, but goddamn, I do not vibe with Marlon here. See, he's got that dude bro surf attitude going on, preaching about how he doesn't take sides and whatnot, but what he calls mellow, I call being a fence sitter. Like, bro, I'm level with you here. Team Plasma is planning to unleash chaos on the region, just to see what happens in the words of Zizzlin, and yet, you aren't concerned at all? If that happens, you might not have any Pokemon to swim with alongside anymore, so get your head in the game, man. Well, hey, the gym is super pretty at least. The best looking one by far. The devs over at Game Freak really knew how to get the most out of the DS hardware by this point, as if that wasn't obvious enough. I just adore the looks of these games so much. I wish the super refined version of the DS style could have continued to be used just a little bit longer. Marlon was not exactly a pushover. I was generally scared his Calicosta would run through me, with it having set up with a Shell Smash, move that drops the defense and special defense of a Pokemon by one stage, but ups the attack, special attack and speed by 2 stages, and how is actually a decent Pokemon on its own. But after that, it went on smoothly thanks to Alpha and Akura, which netted us our final gym badge, the Wave Badge. That's it, we're done. Our adventure's over. Who am I kidding? Of course we're not. We've still got the Pokemon League after all. Nah, but for real. We have to deal with Team Plasma first, which requires us to head south of Humalao into Seaside Cave. But there's just one problem. The place we need to go to is blocked off by a sleeping Crustal. I won't lie, this part stumps me because I just couldn't remember what I needed to do to get past it. Well, I knew what I needed to do, but I didn't remember how. Something to note here, I ran into a trader with an Alamomola who gave my Vanessa one hell of a time. God damn, it was basically holding me captive. It wasn't fun. I hate Steel Strategy so much. So anyway, it turns out you have to venture into the route just northwest of Humalao, Route 22. Oh look, a Terrakion. That's neat. Here, we run into Colress once more, who not only makes note of Terrakion, but also gives us an egotistically named Colress machine, which can be used to move the Crustal blocking our path in Seaside Cave, the same one he used to move the Crustal way back in Route 4. See that? That's foreshadowing, baby. Making our way back to Crustal, the path blocker, sounds like a unique enemy in Xenoblade. We use the device which aggroes the Crustal and then battle it. So, another example of a field encounter. The first story required one actually, unless you count the Grotto Minccino back on Route 5, but that's not a required battle, so yeah. We exit out of the cave and find Plasma's Frigate once more, just kind of docked here randomly. However, with no bridge to board the ship, we're SOL. But suddenly, Marlon appears to lower the bridge for us. Turns out he does care. Kind of. He goes on about just going with the flow and whatever, and yeah, he's for sure a character. But with access onto the ship now, we head aboard to storm the siege, and as you would guess, it's the typical evil group hideout, meaning we have to fight a bunch of grunts and try to make it to where the boss is hiding through a puzzle, and unfortunately for me, it's a bloody warp puzzle. I have never liked these types of puzzles. I always get confused easily and lose my bearings, and it was no exception here. Fucking despise warp pad puzzles.
You seem to be struggling a bit.
I've got it now, but goddamn. Through enough struggling, I was eventually able to turn off all the gates and get to Zinzlin, where Akura girl bosses her way through, with absolutely no help from Hugh in ways that would matter. I'm sorry, that was unnecessarily harsh. There's also this conversation between me and Atom I think you should listen to.
It's like criminal. Nice try. You won't get with the bad cop, tree cop. Cop 1. Where's the body, you scumbag? I swear, I'll cut you. Cop 2. Oh, my branches are so full of apples.
It's also here where we discover that Team Plasma has actually captured Kyurem. Well, not captured in the Pokeball sense, more so holding captive. Well damn, that's not good. Cut to us being thrown off a ship where a cutscene plays, revealing that the frigate can fly. I don't know why this is treated as a big reveal, considering we saw the ship flying back in open season when it bombarded the city with ice, but maybe it was just to show them getting away or something. I honestly couldn't tell you the relevance behind this. Well, seems we're out of luck, or at least until Charon shows up, telling us how he thinks the ship is probably flying towards a giant chasm, the space we first heard about back in Lakanosa Town. So, even despite how it said Kyurem is powerful enough to stand up to both Reshiram and Zekrom, and their trails are nowhere to be seen, let alone them, we just gotta do our best, which is all we can do in life. Never forget that. So there's our objective. Head through Route 22 to reach the giant chasm and, hopefully, stop Team Plasma once and for all. Of course, this won't be easy. We gotta make our way through the frigate again so soon after the first time, which is a really strange decision to have both times you go through it to be so close to each other. But the second time is in a different area of the ship, so I guess I can let it slide. Luckily, this time there aren't any warp puzzles. Instead, we just gotta fight enough for the girls to figure out the passcode to bypass the gates. And you wanna know something? This passcode is random every time you play, so you can't just choose to bypass this entire section by immediately putting in the code. Sure, you could brute force it with just a couple of digits, but if you're like me, you're probably gonna need to find all 4 of them. And besides, you can't even enter the passcode without the keycard first, which you'll need to find off one of the grunts, so this is the anti-speedrun area. And with some sad news, I have to announce this is where you're foul for the first time. She could not live up to the likes of Celine in Pokémon Ultra Moon. May we all have a moment of silence. Okay, that's enough. When we're finally able to pass through the gate, we come face to face with Kyurem, or rather face to container because it's stuck. Lizard then battles us one more time and we wipe the floor with him because Omega is the girl boss that every girl boss looks up to, before we can then make our way to the right warp panel where we encounter a familiar face. So yeah, turns out Chorus was a member of Team Plasma this entire time, saying how an acquaintance asked him to help with research on Kyurem, and so long as he can bring out a Pokemon's full potential, he doesn't care what it takes. You connected the dots here. This has been Chorus's driving force this entire game, and then we learn about the DNA splicer and subsequently Kyurem. Then we look at the box art and it all joins together. It's honestly a clever little way of tying things together without being overly obvious, by having them be directly around Team Plasma but rather lagging behind whenever they are present, making it seem like he's just there by pure coincidence. If you're young and stupid, but hey. He battles us and he has an absolutely awesome battle theme. I've used this theme in my videos before, like my Echo Hero guide back in 2020, off the top of my head anyway, and it has more voice acting than the entirety of Pokemon. Okay, I'll stop that now, and let you listen to this. Truly electric. It's a bit of a fight, but the dynamic duo themselves, Alpha and Omega, pull us through, and that means we can now access the left warp panel that Grunt was guarding and was so confident Chorus could wipe us with that he doesn't even carry any Pokemon. Kinda funny, I won't lie. Upon stepping onto the warp panel, look who it is. Yeah, when I said Getsus has a lot less presence this time, I meant it. This is the first time we're seeing him, but for returning players, he's a menacing presence, so to leave it until now for him to appear is kinda cool, but even so, for someone who was a major part of the last game's story, at the same time having him relegated to this far in feels wrong. An argument can be made both ways, but whatever. He lambasted Chorus for losing to us and for pulling his interest before Getsus of conquering Unova. Yeah, unfortunately Getsus' motive is still the same as it was in the originals, and to an extent as bland as ever. He goes on about this and how the whole world will bow at his feet, as well as how Kyurem is nothing but a husk, left behind after the original legendary dragon spoke about in Legend split into two, Reshiram and Zekrom. Creepy. One of the Shadow Triad soon informs Getsus that Kyurem has been transferred to a place and then they are left to deal with us. But not before Hugh comes in and demands an answer from the Triad member about his sister's stolen Purloin. The Triad member obliges, showing it now having evolved into a Liepard and unwilling to cooperate with Hugh. Suffice to say, it's quite a tragic outcome. The Purloin's been gone from its original owners for so long that not only is it no longer Purloin, but it doesn't even want to listen to them anymore. It's awful, honestly. The Triad member battles us after taunting Hugh about the Liepard, but the entire Triad's here, so we gotta go through all of them, and luckily we make quick work of them because Alpha is built different. Hugh asks that we go on ahead and stop Plasma once and for all because he can't bear what's happened to his sister's Purloin happen to any other Pokemon. So with that, we make our way through the rest of the giant chasm into the back where Kyurem could be found in the originals, but now there's an extra cave opening in the back, so we head on through it. We encounter Getsus once more, this time with Kyurem under his control, and without a second thought, Getsus commands Kyurem to use Glaciate on us, essentially trying to unalive us on the spot, but you know what they say. The hero always arrives in the third act. N is here, along with Zekrom. N says to Getsus that he will do anything in his power to protect Pokemon because He lived amongst them. Pokemon took him under their wing when he was abandoned in the forest as a child, something Getsus references and tries to use against him to manipulate him once more. However, it seems that there was nothing but a trap, because now with Kyurem and Zekrom in the same room, Getsus can use the DNA splicers to fuse the two of them together, create a sort of amalgamation of the two, or rather an incomplete form of what the original Legendary Dragon might have looked like. On that note, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but Kyurem fused with Zekrom, dubbed Black Kyurem, is a lot better looking than Kyurem fused with Reshiram, dubbed White Kyurem. I don't know, the latter looks like a bit of a mess to me, like they couldn't figure out how to balance the two Pokemon so you can tell it's them. Plus, Monkey Brain kicking in here, Black Kyurem just looks super cool. It's interesting, while I prefer Reshiram's design to Zekrom's, it's the opposite way around here, just with an added Kyurem. Maybe that was the key this whole time. So, with this newly reformed behemoth in front of us, it's our job to stop it in its tracks before Getsus can do, well, anything with it. Sadly, we can catch Black Kyurem, the same goes for White Kyurem too, because the cane Getsus has is emitting signals that somehow disrupt all Pokeballs, and yes, that does include the Master Ball, so don't go wasting it here, all because you were curious. So, yeah, it's pretty cool we get to battle the fused form of Kyurem, having a remix theme of the title screen music, which is kind of awesome, not only in that sense, but also because it does sound great too. It's not a track I think of often when it comes to Pokemon music, but every time I do hear it, I can admire it for its intensity. Once we defeat it, it splits back into two, with Kyurem retreating somewhere and Getsus blindsides us with a battle, but not before N is thankfully able to heal our Pokemon. Getsus here, he's lost it. Even his theme is way more aggressive than last time, the last time being the final battle of the Pokemon Black and White by the way, having a much faster tempo and much more sprintation, really speaking to how determined he is to put a stop to us, especially after the incident with the originals player counter 2 years prior. It's really something. His team is no joke either. I was genuinely scared to battle him because of how all-around potent they are. Like with his Koffagrigus, a Pokemon with high defenses and the Mummy ability, one that can put a stop to other abilities like my Darmanitan's Sheer Force, an ability that ups the power of moves with secondary effects, or Drapion's Sniper, an ability that ups the power of critical hits simply by just replacing them. Safe to say he's no pushover, especially not with the high dragon he has, which is underleveled by the way, but I had a workaround for that. It worked!
Hey Dragon! No!
That's rough. You can call me cheap, but I'm just using what's there. After the battle, Getsus loses his mind further, insulting M for just existing, pretty much, and then is taken away by the Shadow Druid, never to be seen again. And that's it. That's the end of Black and White 2's story. Well, the main story, anyway, but regardless, M pushes us to go and challenge the Pokemon League to truly test our ideals, before he flies off with Zekrom once more. Overall, I'm a fan of this story, even if it feels a bit dialed back on compared to the originals, but what bothers me most here is the pacing. Not that it's awful or anything like in previous gens, when a story would conclude before the 8th gym of all things, but it's a mark off from the pacing of the originals, when a story concludes where else but at the end of the game. Pokemon has always had an issue with consistent story pacing, but if your competition is the story of Pokemon Black and White, then okay, I guess that was one before it even began, to be fair. So there we have it. All we have left to do is make our way up Victory Road to the League and conquer it. Before we can get to Victory Road though, we gotta make our way through Route 23. Now, Route 10 in the originals gets a lot of praise, namely for its amazing music, but in my opinion, Route 23 from this game is far better, both in terms of the actual route, which, with it being much longer and having a couple puzzles throughout, including a block pushing puzzle, which I hate. Ugh.
Oh god.
It sucks! But also in terms of its music, it's just so good, man. It's way more energetic and truly feels like the final steps of a journey. And you want to know something else? I didn't notice this until John Conway pointed this out in his Let's Play of these games, but the music here is actually a remix version of Professor Rowan's theme from the DS games. And for the first song you hear in the games that started up the DSAO, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, to be playing on the main game's final route, it's wonderful. I may have started with Platinum, not Diamond and Pearl, but Rowan's theme means so much to me either way, so this is just lovely. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about this route other than it's goated and my opinion shares it while writing the past few paragraphs, namely in the sense that it's better than Route 10. I'm not going to apologise. Upon making our way through the best route in Pokemon history, we get to the badge check. In the originals, this sequence was one of the best in the game, with so much weight and grandiose behind each gate you passed all, until you were finally able to reach Victory Road. I can never get enough of that sequence, but here, it's a simple scan check. Yeah, quite a downgrade. Funny, we get a final route that's superior to the last, followed by the badge check that's inferior to the last. Here I was thinking consistency is key. Nevertheless, N greets us here and gives us the HM waterfall because there are a few areas of Victory Road that can only be accessed with it, but aren't required, and this brings up an interesting tidbit. In the originals, other than a single tree you had to use cut on right at the start of the game, HMs were not a requirement after that. And while that's been the case here so far, unless you went exploring more, you're going to need both Surf and Strength to get through Victory Road here. Both roads are good moves, granted, but it's odd they decided to suddenly have HM required spots this late in, when they could have just not done that again for a streamlined experience. In terms of this iteration of Victory Road, I think it's good. I'm not one to ask regarding Victory Road geography, but I think it's up there, though I am extremely biased to Sinnoh's Victory Road, so, moving on. It's also here in Victory Road, of all places, that I picked up my final official member, a Golok that I named Optimus, because Golok kind of looks like a Transformer and Optimus Prime is a Transformer, so do the math. I should note, I had planned to have a Druddigon as the final team member, but the part of Victory Road you can catch it in is in post-game, so through a little deliberation, I settled on a Golok. So through venturing our way through Victory Road, we eventually end up back in the old one. The reason we weren't able to get through it again was because it was destroyed after Team Plasma's castle rose from the ground in the original, and by extent that's why Route 10 doesn't exist anymore, so it's kinda cool we get to see it again, even if it is mostly destroyed. However, before that, Hugh challenged us to a battle one last time, for old time's sake I guess you could say. He says one of the real reasons he set out on his journey to save his sister's Porygon, and gives us a TM Thunderbolt. Thanks man, I'm really glad we could help you. But, here we are, finally, the Pokemon League. It's been a lot less present in this story compared to the last, but still a place of importance. The place where N told us to test our ideals, and the place where we'll put our name down in the history books. Like last time, we can choose what Elite Four we want to face out in what order, and for the first, I chose Grimsley, the Dark-type Specialist Elite Four. Right, so to address the elephant in the room here on this one, in my review of the original games, I claim that Grimsley was the first Dark-type Specialist in the series. That's objectively wrong, because in the Gen 3 games, there was a Dark-type Elite Four member in Sydney, and even before then, in Gen 2 games, there was another Dark-type Elite Four member in Karen. That one's made even worse by the fact she returned in the Gen 2 remakes, Heart Gold Soul Silver, so what the hell was I on? I should have never said that script spent a year in production at the start of that video. Well, anyway, that mistake I will never forgive myself for aside, Grimsley's fairly easy time for us, thanks to the likes of Vanessa and Alpha, but Vanessa did fall early on thanks to his Scrafty, so it wasn't quite her time. Next, I went with a Ghost-type Elite Four specialist, Chantel. Her team was fairly easy pickings for us, thanks once again to Alpha, but with the help from Akura this time too. Optimus was also there, but got one shot by her Chandelure, so moral support really. Third, I went with the Psychic-type Elite Four specialist, Caitlyn, who I mentioned in the review of the originals as being the same Caitlyn that appears in the Battle Castle in the Battle Frontier of the Pokemon Platinum, except, you know, with a time gap. Vanessa, Akura, and even Optimus this time around made quick work of her, and then it was on to the one I deliberately saved until last because I was generally scared of his team, Marshall. It's mainly because I don't have a lot to work into the fighting type. Sure, I have Gerbosses and powerhouses in Omega, Akura, and even Optimus, but they're either fragile, slow, and fragile, or don't have anything great to work into the type. So it was going to be a struggle, especially with Marshall having Pokemon like Conkeldurr, Mienshao, and Sork. 3 Pokemon I could easily take out my team, given the chance. And I guess Fro's there too. Ah, that comment I made way back about not being able to get into Twist Mountain makes a little more sense now, huh? But even despite my concerns, it went pretty fine. Omega Girlboss, as she does, absolutely nuking the Conkeldurr with Flare Blitz, and even Akura lent some assistance right at the end. Unfortunately, Optimus was moral support once again. It's alright buddy, you'll get your time. And with the Elite Four down, that only leaves one trainer to deal with, the champion. Now, it can't be Alder, he said he retired, so who else could it be that's made a few appearances throughout the story, but otherwise hasn't had much direct involvement with us? Iris. That's right, the little girl from the originals who meant well in all she did, and was even a gym leader in Pokemon White, is now the top trainer in the universe. Huh. I guess by technicality that makes 2 gym leaders who have been promoted to champion by this point in the series, the first being Wallace back in Gen 3. Though I don't know which one of Black and White is considered the canon one, Iris is still champion here nevertheless, so good for her. And oh god, her battle theme. perfect. It is a massive burst of positive energy and feels like a celebration of the DS era of Pokemon. The era I mentioned at the very start of the video as being the favourite of many, including myself. After all, this is the last champion battle of the DS era, so like, what a theme to go out on. I'd argue it's on the level of Cynthia's theme, but maybe a little better because of how Iris' team was an amazing all-around one like Cynthia's, but there were more chances for her to wipe the floor with you, rather than just one in Cynthia's star player, Garchomp. Iris has fierce attackers like Hydreigon, Haxorus, and Arceus. Arceus? What the hell? No, she doesn't have an Arceus! Iris has fierce attackers like Hydreigon, Haxorus, and Arceus, and she has walls like Druddigon, Aggron, and Lapras. It is a strong team to come up against, and I came close to losing to her, but that's what a good battle should be like, only just coming out on top. And yeah, it got pretty close for me. I couldn't quite put a final Pokemon, Arceus, in Defeatist, which would half its attack once below half health, so it came close to almost running through me, but Akura came in clutch, the true MVP. A long time coming for using a Drapion, and she left her mark alright. And with that, we have become the Pokemon champion. Iris leads us into the Hall of Fame where we can put down our name in history, along with the Pokemon that helped us get there, and man, I feel like I have this opinion every time I complete a new playthrough of one of the mainline games, but this team is easily one of my favourites. Pokemon I've used before getting another round, and new Pokemon getting their first shot, it's all really just comes together. Plus, for something special like this review here, just feels that much better. One or two may have fallen off late game, and one may have been super late addition to the team, not exactly getting too many chances to shine, but what is an adventure without some struggle along the way? Sometimes difficult endeavours can make you who you are, so there's nothing wrong about not having it easy. The credits are as sentimental as ever, letting you reflect on your journey, and the music is just so nice too. Again, feeling like a send-off to the DS era. However, we're not done. Black and White 2 has a post-game, a pretty substantial one at that, and I think it's on par with Pokemon Planet's post-game. Yeah, it's that good. Though one or two things that would usually be done in the post-game, such as the Pokemon Studios lot I have said I wouldn't be covering because I never bothered with this time around, so thankfully for me anyway, this video shouldn't go on too much longer. God knows I've kept you long enough already, so let's get on with it. It's important, I feel anyway, to mention that upon beating the game, you unlock an honest-to-god difficulty select through this key system that can actually be synced with other versions, but goddamn is it weird. See, by clearing the game for the first time in Black 2, you'll unlock the challenge mode key, these games' hard mode, but by clearing White 2, you'll get the easy mode key. Alright? Why they took this approach is beyond me. I guess they thought it was a fun idea, but why the hell would I want to play easy mode after already beating the game? By that point, I already know I can beat the game, so... We have arrived back in our home city of Aspertia, the place where it all began. Feels only like yesterday that we set off on a journey. Actually, that was
just over an hour ago.
But you get the point. Our mum welcomes us home, and we are soon met by Professor Juniper. As Dad. Yeah, this is Cedric Juniper. The first time we're meeting him in this game, whereas in the originals we first met him in Stroughton City. He gives us an upgrade to our Pokedex, turning it into the National Dex, and to hell with you if you think I'm even going to bother with that. I've done my time in the past, I don't need to do it again. After he bestows that curse upon us, we meet both Hugh and his little sister outside, who thanks us for rescuing her now Lipid. But she also tells us she's been having dreams about Azoriak on Victory Road recently. This is a weird way to tell us about this, through Hugh's sister, but nevertheless, we have a thing to do. A thing to go see. So heading back to Victory Road, I forget whereabouts this Zoroark actually is and spend a bit of time lost before finally figuring it out, and this leads us into a new section of Victory Road. And see this room here? This is where you can catch Druddigon. Yep, but hey, you can also catch this virus here that will evolve in about 40 more levels, so insert joke about Universe's absurdly high evolution level requirements here. Here we are though, a familiar place, N's Castle, but the destroyed remains of it. We are met by N, who tells us this place is essentially the ruins of Getz's dreams, and how there's a chamber located in the deepest part of the castle that means a lot to him, and he wants us to lead him there, as a way to see what path we choose. Of course, there's a room right in front of us, so where else are we going to go first than the one closest? But for N, maybe that wasn't our best decision. It's his childhood room. I have covered this room along with an unsettling remix of its original music in my How Video Game Music Can Unsettle You video, so for the sake of brevity, all I'll say is that this room obviously ignites certain feelings in N and is essentially a box of broken promises, dreams, and painful memories brought about by hindsight. It's a haunting room, so I guess that makes 3 unsettling locations in this game, goddamn. There aren't any other rooms to explore, however, so we can only make our way to the chamber N was telling us about, and it's exactly the place you're thinking it is. the location of our final battle with N in Pokemon Black and White. He explains how a certain trainer 2 years ago changed his outlook on life, and that was, to make the world better you must accept different ideas, and now he wants to see if we have the strength to hold up to that notion by battling us. N, however, has released the rest of his Pokemon he had prior, so now he only has a Zekrom. But despite having only one Pokemon, Zekrom is one hell of a threat, boasting godlike stats, so be prepared, I'd say. I never had an issue against the Zekrom because Optimus decided it was their time now, better late than never I suppose, and what a time too. N has a fantastic battle theme here by the way, but N having a great theme is nothing new. Our battle fondly reminded N of 2 years ago, and afterwards he thanked Zekrom for everything and asked it to use its power to help us from now on, before returning it to the Darkstone. I guess in terms of Reshiram and Zekrom, this is just how you release them. I mean, I guess it's infinitely better than just letting them roam free, so no complaints there. He asked us to take the stone to Dragon Spiral Tower, located north of Icarus City, and yes, you can still fight me on the pronunciation, where we'll be able to awaken it once more. And there's our next goal in this little story arc, so we first make our way to Opelucid so we can go west into Icarus, which is definitely the more scenic approach if you ask me, because we get to cross the Tube Line Bridge, the third of 5 bridges we can cross in these games. And while I don't think it's the best bridge in Unova, that obviously goes to the Village Bridge, it's still pretty cool nonetheless. I also think its music is pretty underrated. Upon crossing the Tube Line Bridge, we arrive on Route 8, which happens to be one of those places that can change depending on the season, but only in winter though, where the puddles will freeze over and turn into mini ice sliding puzzles, so thank god I'm playing in autumn. In all fairness, ice sliding puzzles aren't the worst, that's how it goes to block punching puzzles.
This sucks!
So anyway, here we are in Icarus City. Before we went straight up into Dragon Spiral Tower, I wanted to explore the city's gym that was the 7th one in the originals, but because Bryson retired to go pursue movies again at Pokestar Studios, it wasn't a part of the gym challenge in this one, duh. And you know, trainer engagement aside, like Skylar's gym, both of them, it was pretty fun to explore this place again, even though there's nothing of interest other than some kind of remote text from Bryson you can see here. After that little trip down memory lane, which actually that's kind of what the post game of Black and White 2 is about, it's time to venture up into Dragon Spiral Tower. And just before we can, we run into Cedric Jr. again, who speculates on what the tower could actually represent, truth or ideals, tying it with the themes of Black and White, all with the question of perspective. Dragon Spiral Tower was a place of major significance in the story of the originals, and I'm glad it's getting something else here because I love how both mystical and kind of eerie this place is. A location of legend that truly feels like it matters in terms of its look and feel. It's so good. As soon as we arrive at the top of the tower, we're prompted to take up the Darkstone from our bag, where we get to watch the iconic cutscene of the respected legendary dragon awaken once more. This will never get old, I love it so much. It's time to battle Zekrom, or Reshiram if you're in White 2. A beast of extreme power that can easily run through your oh, you can just use the quick ball first turn to catch it. Yep. I mentioned in the Black and White review, I learned from Chogokomori that both Reshiram and Zekrom have catch rates of 45, and with how the quick ball will triple the chance of catching a Pokemon if it's used in the first turn, the former I didn't know about but the latter I did, it's highly likely you can end the battle turn 1, so might as well give it a shot, you know. But yeah, with Zekrom now caught, N congratulates us and informs us that Kyurem has returned to the Giant Chasm. So there's one last story beat in this arc we've got to deal with, though it will be a little more challenging. See, unlike the 2 legendary dragons, Kyurem has a catch rate of 3. So all I can say is good luck with a quick ball on turn 1. Though it's not impossible, mind you. But you know, that's not happening, I don't have the patience, so after one genuine attempt on trying to catch Kyurem, I reset and just used the Master Ball that Professor Juniper gave to me back in Mistral. You might say I should have saved it for a roaming legendary, Pokemon that you will have to randomly find on the route and then flee turn 1. But here's some news, Black and White 2 don't have roaming legendaries. They're all just field encounters, which is greatly appreciated. Granted, I've never bothered with legitimately trying to catch roaming legendary Pokemon before, but I've heard the stories, and yeah, it doesn't take a genius to figure out why they're tedious. And yeah, with roaming legendaries not a thing, that means we can't get the weather genies like we did in the originals. In fact, you can't get them here at all. Instead, you have to look towards a separate game entirely, something called Pokemon Dream Radar. If you don't already have this app on your 3DS, then you're SOL, because the 3DS eShop is no longer a thing and that's the only way to get it. But yeah, anyway, Dream Radar is an AR type of game where you have to use the 3DS's camera to look around, where you need to focus on this orb that's revealed to be a Pokemon by the end of it. And doing enough of this will eventually net you with a chance to obtain the 3 genies, and even other legendary Pokemon too, like the Sinnoh Box legendaries for example. That's pretty awesome. But I obviously couldn't do this because I'm emulating. But even if I were playing on the 3DS, I don't think I'd bother with it anyway. AR games are not my type of thing, and it can get a little disorientating sometimes, so yeah. This kind of renders the whole Abundant Shrine completely useless this time around, as that's where you would go to catch Landorus upon bringing both Tornadus and Thundurus with you, which were version exclusive Pokemon to Black and White respectively, so damn. You probably saw the level difference between me fighting Zekrom and fighting Kyurem here. I didn't do the latter immediately, but that's besides the point. But anyway, afterwards we're met by both Sharon and Bianca, who kind of congratulate us on catching Kyurem and push us in the direction of completing the National Dex. One hell of a lane goal, but I already gave my piece on that. You also get the DNA splices here after catching Kyurem, that you then fuse it with either Reshiram or Zekrom yourself. And with that, the story of Black and White 2 has come to a close, so what's next? Well, a lot actually, but it's not going to require my usual formula that I've used up until this point to cover, so it won't take that much longer. This video is going to unalive me. As you probably figured out by us having made our way to Icarus City, we can now explore previously inaccessible parts of the region, and that includes that bottom right part that was where we started in the originals, and that's the epitome of a trip down memory lane for returning players. Story-wise, there's nothing to know about this part of the region, other than a quick little side tour helping Sharon through Pinwheel Forest, though that wasn't before we got to cross the absolutely iconic Sky Arrow Bridge. Still no village bridge, TBH. And the fun thing here, I had to do the whole of the Pinwheel Forest thing twice because of a power cut, so that was fun, but despite that, there are a few changes to this part of the region I do want to talk about, though they are mostly small changes. First, Nacrene City. This place had a tiny makeover, namely in front of where the gym used to be, and on that note, we get to see Lunar again, who retired from being a gym leader to focus on her other job of being director of the museum, and she gives us a choice between the Gen 5 fossil Pokemon. That's right. For some reason, resurrecting fossil Pokemon was relegated to the post-game, and so was the Pokemon Daycare, just a route over from Nacrene. I don't know why this decision was made, especially in the case of the Daycare, but sure. To note, you can restore other fossil Pokemon by obtaining them from the Sky and Twist Mountain, because that's open now, once a day at random, so good luck getting insert your favourite fossil Pokemon here in a reasonable time frame. And where the Type Heroes gym was prior is now a super fancy restaurant. I suppose that's kind of what they had going prior, so nice to see them properly follow through on it, even if it meant they did have to give up their position as gym leaders. But screw Crest, by the way. This is one of the many daily activities you can do in the post game, battling alongside one of the 3 Type Trio lot in a double battle. I thought it'd be kind of fun to battle with Crest because I have no water type Pokemon on my team, so some good coverage, you know? But that might have been my biggest mistake yet, because that battle just did not go well. In fact, it resulted in my first blackout, Pokemon's equivalent of a game over, and I'm not usually one to blame others, but goddamn, Crest should have maybe done a little more. It's funny, I gave the Unova Leaders Tournament a try in the PWT, and Crest was actually the final one I had to face, and beating him felt so satisfying with what happened earlier. So, I guess you could say I created a little character arc for myself. By going west of Striaton, we can enter the Dream Yard, the place where Team Plasma's true motives were revealed to us in the originals. This time, there's nothing much. Just a Latios or Latias depending on the version you're playing, so yeah, nothing too important. I kid, it's a cool little thing to find, and I even bothered catching it, which, to be fair, I ended up doing with a couple other legendaries. Heading down into Accumulate Town, this is just a nice, quiet place to be. There's not much to do, sure, but not everywhere needs something to do. Sometimes you just gotta slow down and enjoy life, you know? The movie Cars taught me that. Venturing further south, we can make it back to where it all started for Gen 5, November Town. Yet another peaceful town, the vibes of a homey place are unbeaten, and Professor Juniper's lab is located here, so if you want to show her our Pokédex progress for a little reward, perhaps then we can. I didn't bother with the Pokédex as I've already made reference to, regional or the national one, but there are a couple of interesting things you can get from going all the way. From Juniper, for seeing every Pokemon in the region, you can get a special ticket to a far off location that has a field encounter Shiny Haxorus, which you know, Shiny Haxorus is pretty damn cool, and for free too, so it's most definitely worth going after if you want to. You can also get the overall charm from catching every Pokemon in the regional dex, and that makes finding eggs from Pokemon breeding at the daycare on Route 3 a lot easier. Good if you're trying to get competitively viable Pokemon or even shiny hunting. And on that, from completing the national dex, which involves obtaining every Pokemon, we have some exceptions like event legendaries, mostly mythical, you can get the shiny charm, which makes finding shiny Pokemon a lot easier by increasing the rate from 1 in 8,192 to 1 in 2,730.6. A 300% increase. So yeah, pretty cool incentives, but as I've said, I've done my time in the past, so I'm good, thanks. There is something else of interest here though, besides the Queen herself I mean, and that's going into the previous player character's house. There, their mother mistakes us for them. This is an interesting interaction. See, through reading between the lines, it seems the mom there hasn't seen the player and character in like 2 years between these games. More evident by the fact Sharon and Bianca, the childhood friends of the previous player character, don't know where they are either. This has led a lot of people to theorise that maybe the player character from the originals was unalived off screen in those 2 years by Getsis, or at least by the Shadow Triad by request of Getsis, given how the man's clearly not all there and how willing he was to just off us back in the Giant Chasm. I don't really see it. I prefer the more wholesome alternative of them just being in a different region in their search for N, which was the last thing they said to their mother that they were going to do, namely because the other legendary dragon is just not present at all, and you think Getsus or the Triad would have just taken the other from them. An interesting theory, no doubt. Pokemon is no stranger to darker implications here and there, but even so, it's not my vibe anymore. The mother's missing, possibly deceased from a server child who's actually probably just chilling in alone on the side. There's only one area left to explore that we didn't have access to before, and it's out west of Nimbasa, Black City. Well, actually, I did venture out to the east onto Route 17, the epitome of optional routes, to not only get the Magma Stone, which we'll need to find Heatran in Reversal Mountain, the second legend I bothered with, because I like Heatran a lot, but also to battle Colress again, who's sitting idly on the docked Frygate near the P2 laboratory. Another daily activity actually, but a super inconvenient one because of what it takes to get there, though to be fair, getting to hear his amazing battle theme again might just be worth it. Upon defeating him, he'll actually give us a second Master Ball. Quite a reward, you could say. There's rarely been another case of having more than 2 Master Balls in series, unless you count the whole winning lottery thing, but nah. Oh, and I guess through the pickup ability too, but I mean reasonably obtaining them. Anyway though, back to Black City, but before we get there, we gotta cross the final, in our case, of the 5 bridges in Unova, Marvelous Bridge. I admire the confidence at least. But hey, there's something of interest here. A Cresselia! The third of the few legendaries I actually caught, mostly because I think Cresselia is really cool and its design is just really pretty. I'm not gonna use it, but you know. Crossing the bridge leads us to Route 15, which has the Poké Transfer Lab, a way of trading up Pokemon from the Gen 4 games. Well, I say trading, but it's a one-way system. However, well, yeah, you already know. So with that mild disappointment, we continue west and arrive into an even bigger disappointment, Black City. In White and White version 2, this place will be the White Forest instead, and makes White the superior version for having the 40 extra version exclusives, but here, that's not the case. Though it's still superior because Black City is just so depressing. Here is located a kind of battle facility, Black Tower in Black 2 and White Tree Hollow in White 2. But unlike the Battle Institute in Nimbasa, this one's actually good. What it is a gauntlet of battles through multiple levels of the place, those floors having multiple floors themselves as you progress upwards. Each time trying first to find what's called the Gate Trainer and defeat them so they can open the gates somewhere else on the floor or others, so you can then battle the Boss Trainer who you'll need to beat to progress up to the next level. What makes the place interesting is not only how it progressively gets more difficult the higher you go up, or the lower you go in Tree Hollow's case, which should be expected, but you're also not allowed to use items to heal up your team. You can still access the bag through the team menu to switch around items or whatever, but you have no way of recovering unless you find a doctor or nurse trainer on the floor. I always love getting to this place because I find the progressive difficulty super fun to overcome, and the idea of a gauntlet type deal is one that will never get old to me. That, and it's great for leveling Pokemon because, as you've noticed, you're not just set to level 50 like you would be with the aforementioned Battle Institute or the Battle Subway. On the very last floor of this place, you can battle this kid called Benga who, well, first you can't even enter this place without having first met him after battling Alder for the first time, which is another daily activity you can do, and he's also Alder's grandson. I honestly don't think Alder was that old, but I suppose it is possible to be a grandparent in like your 40s, so I'm not going to question it too much. But yeah, kind of like his grandfather, Benga's no pushover. He has a Latios for God's sake, and not to mention the Volcarona and Garchomp, the latter being a Dragonite in White too. Suffice to say, it's a scary team, even if he only does have 3 Pokemon. But if you can overcome the entire place, including Benga himself obviously, he'll ask you to meet him at Alder's house to give you something, and this something is truly something. I should have mentioned, but pacing's a bitch, so you can actually switch between White Forest and Black City through the key system I talked about, so long as you've cleared at least 5 of the levels in the opposite version. So if you want White Forest and Black 2, you gotta clear 5 levels of White Tree Hollow first. So, as I was saying, as a reward for all that, he'll give you a free shiny Gibble in Black 2 and a free shiny Dratini in White 2. Yes, he gives you a shiny Pokemon for free. Isn't that awesome? I mean, I definitely have opinions on Shiny Garchomp and Shiny Dragonite. It should have been pink, damn it! But it's hard to argue a free shiny is a bad thing, especially prior to Gen 6, where the chances of shinies were doubled, or halved. You get the idea. That makes 2 shinies you kind of get for free in these games. Just feels like another way to celebrate the end of the DS era. And here we go, we're finally done. I did do a couple other things like finding the Sinnoh Lake trio and tracking them down to where they fled off to, but I never bothered with catching them, and then I even did a little spelunking in Clay Tunnel, the thing that's been under construction in Driftville City the entire main game and still partially being worked on here. I honestly had no reason to go in here other than to find the Reggie trio or other duo, because while Regirock is in both versions, Registeel is Black 2 exclusive and Regice is White 2 exclusive, so without trading or using the key system to unlock the other chamber, you can only get 2 of them, and ugh. I didn't catch them because halfway through battling Regirock, I just realised I didn't care in the slightest because I generally do not like the Reggies. Don't ask me the specific reason, I can't quite figure out why, but I just don't vibe with them. Their battle theme also kind of annoys me too. It is a shame in a sense because by catching all 3 you can then go fight Regigigas in Twist Mountain, making it the most logical way of obtaining it by this point in the series. I do actually like Regigigas a lot, it's the exception even despite its atrocious ability, but yeah. Nah, I don't want to end this on a negative note, so as one last thing I did, I visited Anvil Town, a pretty remote location you can only get to by taking one of the trains in the battle subway. There isn't much to do here, it's just a nice and quiet place to hang out if you need to slow things down a little, but there is a guy here who gives items he's found every day, which can even include rare candies. A nice little incentive for coming all the way out here. Pokémon Black and White 2 are games that, while I don't think match the story quality of the originals, make up for in sheer content alone. I'm not kidding when I say these are always the games I look forward to going back to the most, just for that fact. And I know I literally just said they don't compare in story quality, but I still appreciate them a lot for letting you catch up with old friends and tying up loose ends to make the story feel all the more complete, while also having something of its own, namely the whole thing about Hugh wanting to rescue his sister's Purloin, or the thing about Kieran being a mysterious and threatening entity. And to get a little personal here, back in 2021, which was the last time I played these games before this review, playing through White 2 at the time, on that playthrough team, I had a Liepard that I named after my recently passed cat, Fluffy. And you know, that Liepard went on to hold her own, being a critical hit machine, landing them extremely frequently, more than you would expect from something running a move like Night Slash, and overall, just being surprisingly good. It kind of felt like it was my cat's final goodbye, like her spirit was living on through that Liepard. And for me, it also felt like a final way to say goodbye to her. And so, because of that, these games mean a lot to me. Not only in the sense of them being the final games of the DS era, my favourite era of the mainline Pokemon games, but also for that. Whew, that was certainly something. I definitely feel like I covered all my bases, but I don't know, man, like, honestly, I'm getting this weird feeling, right? It's like there's something I've missed. It's happened a lot when I make these videos, but I don't know, man, this time I can't pin it down.